All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Chase Robinson, breaking down the SEC football schedules team by team for the 2025 season. And we get to the Tennessee Vols here. Chase, a team that we know, trying to continue to replicate its success under Josh Heupel. And now, as we start to look at their schedule, Vols fans will be looking at a couple dates in particular, both at home and on the road, that are going to kind of define their 2025 schedule.
Well, they managed the schedule pretty well last year, get to the college football playoffs, so that's definitely their goal again this year. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they navigate it. Tennessee was the end of a lot of talk over the offseason, and they're going to look to get some wins on the field to get back to the college football playoff. And again, I think they have a schedule where they can look to do that.
All right, let's pull it up here. So go to FBS schedules. We start off kind of the way we did it last year. We looked at each of these and just kind of break it down by basically quarters. So if you look at sort of the first quarter of the season there, the opening game in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz against Syracuse. That's certainly the one you're circling right off the bat, Chase, because it is game one. But it's a team in Syracuse that I think it's kind of an interesting setup. Early kickoff there, start the season on August 30th.
Yeah, they got the neutral site game there in Atlanta. Syracuse is a team that we saw get some good wins last year, and so interesting game. Tennessee started off with North Carolina State on a neutral field last year, had no problem with them. They got another neutral site game this year. I don't expect them to have any major issues with Syracuse, but it'll be a great way to see really what this Tennessee team is made of. But Josh Heupel usually does pretty good in these neutral site games.
Yeah, I think it's again kind of an interesting one. And if you look at some of the just expectations, I'm trying to get a feel. I think Tennessee. Now this was a couple weeks ago. Tennessee was a 12.5 point favorite. I'm not exactly sure what the number is now. I'm sure maybe it's moved a little bit, but Tennessee was a 12.5 point favorite over Syracuse in those way too early week one lines. So that's notable on that. So Tennessee, maybe a couple touchdowns by the time we get to the game. We'll see on that. All right, going beyond the opener there, ETSU at home on September the 6th. And then, of course, we look at the big one, which will come on September 13th against Georgia with the another home game coming after that against UAB. But clearly, if we're looking at games that are going to define not just this part of the schedule, but Tennessee's entire season, that one at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC on September 13th qualifies probably more than any of the others on the schedule.
Yeah, this is such an interesting schedule. You start out with Syracuse neutral field, then you have ETSU, and then you go straight into it with Georgia coming to Knoxville. So if you're Tennessee, like these first 2 weeks have really got to be, let's hone in on something, let's get everything fixed up, because you have one of the most important games of the season, week 3. And that's quick. That's right off the bat. We're going to learn a lot about Tennessee, and I feel like at this point you're still figuring your team out, especially with a new quarterback that they will have this year. And so they're going to have to get familiar with each other very quickly because, and look, we do know, and from what we learned last year, you lose a game, that does not put you out of the college football playoffs. But there's other games that Tennessee has to be ready for on down the road. So this Georgia game is important. It's in Knoxville, and if they want to get back to the college football playoff, you want to be in this game, and that's early for a game of that importance.
Yeah, Tennessee fans already know this stat, but we'll just quickly repeat it anyways, because we're going to do our due diligence here. They've lost 8 straight in this series, have only scored more than 17 points once against Georgia since their last win in Athens, 2016. Of course, had some wild games back-to-back there, 2015 and 16. But, yeah, so the Vols will look to kind of change the momentum a little bit of that series there, but undoubtedly one of the biggest games of the season, if not the biggest game of the season, and yeah, it comes pretty early on the schedule. Okay, so you've got the neutral field game against Syracuse, which we say that I think there'll be a lot of orange there, Chase. I think we can guarantee that, but a lot of Tennessee orange I think will be also there in the building. And then things get a little bit interesting in terms of the upcoming group of 4 games after that. They go to Mississippi State on September 27th. They get the week off before hosting Arkansas. Then they go to Alabama to play the Crimson Tide, and then stay on the road at Kentucky. So that again goes back to how big that Georgia game could be. Let's say Tennessee snaps the streak. Then all of a sudden, I think you've got games in this stretch where they will be a favorite at Mississippi State, a team that should be better, I think, Chase, but how much better, we'll see. Arkansas, kind of, I feel like we can kind of put Arkansas in the same category every year. It just kind of depends. Hard to know where they'll be mid-October. And then, of course, Alabama, who has expectations to step back into the national title picture this year. And then at Kentucky, another team that's trying to sort of improve itself. And we recently did the video on Kentucky. Looking at that offensive capability will be one of the biggest things for the Wildcats.
Yeah, Tennessee, that's a good point with Georgia. Like, because it comes early, you've got some important games to follow it, Alabama being one of those. And even the week before, Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas beat Tennessee last year. It'll be in Knoxville this time, which will be a little different. That is a tough place to play. But you're going to Tuscaloosa to play a team that you beat on your home field last time. Alabama would love nothing more than to beat Tennessee in Tuscaloosa this year. And I think, again, going back to the Georgia game, you lose to Georgia, you're not out of the college football playoff. You lose in Tuscaloosa, then your back's going to be against the wall. And so I think that the Alabama game is very important. And back-to-back road trips, again, going to Kentucky, who they play fairly well at home. We saw that several times last year. That's an important stretch there with Arkansas, Alabama, Kentucky. And you say that's an important stretch, like, because you got Arkansas and Kentucky in there, like back-to-back road trips. Arkansas is a wild card. Tennessee is going to have to be playing really good football right there in the middle of the season. And especially getting some momentum going into November is going to be really important for Tennessee if they want to make a run.
Yeah, I mean, that 3-game stretch, and we're about to expand it into 4 when we get into the next game, because that's kind of the defining part of your season, because that's where, if you were to snap the streak against Georgia and win that game, so much less pressure on you going into, like you said, a game where it's, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to call Alabama a wild card, but you probably could, in a sense, say like Alabama, you know what I mean? Like, from the perspective of, okay, are they going to be a dominant Alabama team that's ranked, 1, 2, 3 in the country, or are they going to be an Alabama team that's ranked, maybe around the top 10, something like that by the time we get to mid-October?
Right, and that's a good way to put it. I do think Alabama can be in that wild card conversation, but Tennessee having traveled to Tuscaloosa, they're going to make it very difficult on the Vols. I'll tell you that on October 18th.
Yep. So we'll see. That's a big stretch, of course, for the Vols. They're looking at that one. All right. If we scroll down, that is where, again, we kind of look at Oklahoma here, and I think, we mentioned Oklahoma probably qualifies too as a bit of a team that's maybe a wild card, although I think the expectation is that the Sooners will be much better and a bit more consistent than they were last year. Injuries played a role, other things played a role, just simply weren't good enough on the offensive side of the ball. So that one, the Josh Heupel Bowl takes place, at Neyland this year. So that's a good one to have at home. I think after that, like you said, a bit of a tricky stretch beforehand, back-to-back road games. You get another week off. New Mexico State comes to Knoxville after that. Then at Florida, home against Vanderbilt. Now, as we said, Florida's a team that has changed its fortunes a bit since the first of last year when everybody thought Billy Napier was gone. Now, DJ Lagway is going to lead the way for the Gators in what expects to be a team that probably is competing around that top 15 or so, top 20 nationally. Vanderbilt's got Diego Pavia back. So, yeah, I mean, it's your usual SEC difficult type schedule, but I do feel like this is kind of the land of wild cards for Tennessee on the schedule, because it feels like a lot of these teams kind of qualify for that.
Oh, most certainly, and that's why the Georgia and Alabama game are so important, because you're getting into a interesting portion here in the bottom part of the schedule with Oklahoma, who I think is going to be worlds better than they were last year. Florida is going to be a good football team. Vanderbilt, wild card, we have no idea, especially at this point of the season when they meet there late November. So there's a lot of important games here for Tennessee that I don't know. I couldn't tell you how many games they're going to win right now. I really don't. I really, I'm going to have to see a little of Tennessee before I can say that. But this part of the schedule to me is interesting because, one, you've played a lot of football heading into this stretch of Oklahoma, New Mexico State, Florida, and Vanderbilt. And how is the mentality of Tennessee? How are they playing? And again, I think it all starts with Georgia. It's early in the season. It can really set the tone. If they win that one, then I think Tennessee can be rolling. If they drop that one and then they go to Tuscaloosa and struggle against Alabama, well, your back's against the wall. You got to be playing lights out football. If you win Georgia, Alabama, Arkansas, like, you're in good shape. And I think they will have some momentum heading into this back part of the schedule. But yeah, it's a sketchy part of the schedule, I feel like, for Tennessee.
Well, the Vols currently at DraftKings, the win total over/under set at 8.5 on the number there for Tennessee, with the under actually being minus 125 at this point. So you think they're going to go over? You get a little bit more bang for your buck if you think Tennessee wins more than 8.5 games. So if they get 9 or more, that's what you're betting on there. And yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, for Tennessee, this is one where kind of look at the way the schedule shapes up. Have some stretches at home early, especially the Georgia game, and then you kind of bounce around a bit with some of these potential wild card games on the road and at home against some of these teams that feel like they're sort of in make or break type seasons for teams like Oklahoma and Florida and Arkansas and even Kentucky, probably in a certain sense. So yeah, that's a look at Tennessee's schedule. We'll be doing, I'm sure, our game by game predictions way too early before we head closer to the season. So you guys watch, make sure to check that out. Of course, check out our friends at GameTime Sidekicks. My goodness, we keep telling you about this great product. Chase just got his in the mail, too. We're both repping it. Look at this. You got Smokey there on the screen right now for you Tennessee fans. Check out our friends at GameTime Sidekicks. Unbelievable product. We keep telling you. Officially licensed stainless steel drinkware. Have all the SEC schools. Over 350 more universities. So if you want to go expand beyond the SEC, you can do that. Great quality in terms of the construction and the ice retention. All their logo printing and decoration, product decoration, it's all done in Knoxville. So if you're a Tennessee fan, how are you not supporting these guys? Tons of designs and logos offered for each school. They've got the College Vault line that very few other brands have. Stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles with the shaker cups. SE16, guys. That's all you got to do. SE16. 10% discount for our viewers if you use that over at GameTimeSidekicks.com. So we appreciate their support of the channel. We appreciate your support of the channel. Let us know your thoughts and early predictions on Tennessee's football schedule for the 2025 season.